Well, you talked about earlier with school districts, but we're seeing more school districts, at least in Virginia, for example, last night, deciding to go online only. What does the president say to parents out there who are now going, okay, what do I do with my kids?
Yeah, the president has said unmistakably that he wants schools to open, and I was just in the Oval talking to him about that. And when he says open, he means open and full, kids being able to attend each and every day at their school. The science should not stand in the way of this. And as Dr. Scott Atlas said, I thought this was a good quote. Of course we can do it. Everyone else in the Western world, our peer nations, are doing it. We are the outlier here. The science is very clear on this, that, you know, for instance, you look at the JAMA pediatric study of 46 pediatric hospitals in North America that said the risk of critical illness from COVID is far less for children than that of seasonal flu. The science is on our side here, and we encourage for localities and states to just simply follow the science, open our schools. It's very damaging to our children. There's a lack of reporting of abuse. There's mental depressions that are not addressed, suicidal ideations that are not addressed when students are not in school. Our schools are extremely important. They're essential, and they must reopen.
If ever there was one sentence that completely encapsulated this administration, it's Kayeigh McEnany saying, quote, "The science should not stand in the way of this." This is Trump's press secretary yet again advocating for schools to reopen in the face of overwhelming scientific evidence suggesting that it's nowhere near as safe as she's making it out to be. And all of this is hinging on the White House's suggestion that children cannot contract coronavirus. That is wholly, unequivocally untrue. It is a dangerous and glaring lie. In reality, CDC figures show that 6% of the nation's confirmed cases have been among people 17 years old and younger. And in fact, 171 people under the age of 24 have died from coronavirus. So Kayleigh can claim that kids aren't impacted, but she should tell that to the parents of a 6-week-old infant from Corpus Christi who died on Friday from the virus. Bear in mind too that this is all occurring in the summer. Kids are dying when they're not in school. Just imagine what it's going to be like when hundreds of thousands of American school children are forced back into close quarters. It wasn't too long ago that I was in school. I know the Trump administration has aged me, but it wasn't that far back when I was in the classroom. And let me just say, unequivocally, that you cannot socially distance under normal conditions in schools. You cannot mitigate the risk when there are 20, 30, 40 kids in the classroom. You can't do it when hundreds of kids are in the halls between classes. You can't do it in phys ed or the lunchroom or walking to buses or on the bus itself. The default position here should not be a blind push to pack kids into schools. It should be doing whatever will keep them safe. And if there's no plan to keep them safe, then this administration has to be able to acknowledge that. But for some absurd reason, they view any change of any position as conceding defeat. And so if Trump decrees one time that he wants schools to open, well then all of a sudden the entire cabinet and White House officials and Fox News have to follow their marching orders and pretend like shoving hundreds of thousands of the nation's school children into harm's way is a good idea. It's not weak to admit you were wrong, it's weak to be too afraid to admit you were wrong. It's weak to be too insecure to change your stance even in the face of overwhelming evidence and public sentiment showing that forcing students to go to school will put them at risk. And bear in mind, public sentiment is against sending kids back. In a national poll, only 36% of parents supported sending kids back to school before the virus is contained. So I don't know what Trump's strategy is here, but I don't see how demanding that kids are put in harm's way against the vast majority of the country's will is a winning issue here. But with that said, none of this administration's response has been a winning issue. Instead of spending their time trying to convince parents to risk their kids' lives, they should be focused on containing the spread of the virus. That's what they should have been focused on all along. If they had taken the steps necessary to contain the outbreak, like most countries around the world, we wouldn't be in a position here where we even have to debate about the extent to which we want to risk American kids' lives. The fact that we're having this debate at all is a testament to the failures of this administration. I do want to point out one specific point that Kayleigh tries to make, and that is that we should be able to open up schools because most other countries are doing it. Now let's just think for a second, why might those countries be able to open up their schools? Could it be because they got their outbreak under control? Could it be that their leaders didn't pretend the virus was a hoax, or hold campaign rallies, or politicize mask wearing? The fact that other countries contain their spread isn't permission for us to open our schools. That's not how the world works. They get rewarded for having done the work. But because our leader decided to do everything possible to not solve this, then we don't get to enjoy the benefits that other countries enjoy. And the fact that Kayleigh, a full-grown woman, doesn't understand this should be cause for alarm. So the White House can pretend that they're relying on science and they can pretend they're looking out for children's well-being, but per usual, none of the facts back that up. The only thing they're looking out for is Donald Trump and his desperation to manifest a reality where everything is open and back to normal. But nothing could be farther from the truth. And don't forget to listen to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I'll take a deep dive into the biggest issues of the week and interview major players in the world of politics, like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Beto O'Rourke, Eric Swalwell, Katie Porter, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.